Alrighty, balancers. Today's guest is an intuitive coach who helps people find relief from crisis, confusion, and stress. She hosts the Self Care for Extremely Busy Women podcast, I think a title that speaks to the soul of everybody listening. And she's also the author of Free Spirited: How My Daughter Helped Heal Me from the Afterlife. It's my absolute pleasure to welcome Suzanne Falter to the show today. Suzanne, a warm welcome.
Thank you, Erica. Very happy to be here.
It's nice to have you on. So, where in the world are you streaming from?
Oakland, California.
Beautiful. I guess when you reached out to me, when we were initially chatting back and forth, you started to explain to me, or to describe in it at least, the story or the episode in your life that you feel really helped you reinvent yourself and your life journey and mission. And you describe it as sad, funny, incredible, and inspiring. And that is the advent of losing your daughter, which I can't even wrap my head around or process, even going through something like that. And I'd be extremely grateful if you could share that experience with the listeners today, and what that meant for the trajectory of your life and your life's purpose.
I'd be happy to. I mean, the truth is that sometimes crisis sets us free. And I was in a place at the time where I was overworked. I had had a very successful marketing coaching business online, and I had completely burned out on it and closed it. I had been in a toxic relationship that had just ended, and I had moved out, so I didn't even have a place to live. And I was driving around the Bay Area, trying to. I was kind of new to the Bay Area. For had moved here a year earlier, and I was trying to figure out, where do I want to live? What is the thing I want to do, and where am I supposed to focus my energy? And my daughter had come to the Bay Area because she wanted to be a healer, and she was a trained blues singer. Working in Austin, Texas, the heart of the blues in America, or one of them. And she was suddenly really filled with this desire to be a healer. So she came out here, and she was going to start taking classes at City College in San Francisco. And the day before that happened, before she was to begin, she and I had dinner. She was acting a little strange at dinner in a nice restaurant, and she was a little unfocused. Now, Teal had epilepsy, but she had a very well controlled case of it. So I didn't think too much about it. I had to go meet a friend, so I got someone to drive her home. And the next thing I knew, the hospital was calling saying, "Your daughter's in critical condition. She's had a cardiac arrest." And never in a million years would I have anticipated this, ever. Her epilepsy was no cause for concern. She went all over the world performing and backpacking around with her little guitar, and we never thought two things about it. But in fact, she was really impaired that night, and I was so self-involved and wrapped up in my own worries and concerns that I didn't really notice it. And the funny thing is that I walked into her hospital room. She was in the emergency ward, of course, and I walked into where they had her, and she was just covered with monitors and beeping machines, and I could barely see her body. And I suddenly had this very clear understanding that she was going to die, and that I was going to take on her healing work, and that this was this profound transformation that I needed. I was going to lose her, but I had to become a better person. I had to become more balanced. I had to become happier. I had to do what it took to take care of myself adequately to become a happier person, because I was miserable already. And honestly, I was in shock the whole first year. I couldn't believe it had happened. And I kept thinking I could call her. And that's how it is, with sudden loss. You often think, this person is still there. But along with it, I had crushing grief, of course, but I also had these weird surges of joy. And not long after her death, I started really feeling her presence from the afterlife. And I could feel her guiding me and helping me return to myself in a way that is pretty darn magical. And, it's gone on for many years. She died 10 years ago. And I started writing Free Spirited, I was already a writer. I'd written 15 books, but I felt I had to document what was going on because it was so incredible. And it took me a long time, took about 8 years to really write this book in bits and pieces and really bring forth the full story because I had to evolve. I had to change. It became this catalyst for me, as I said at the beginning, to do her healing work, which is really about helping people return to self care and helping people return to themselves.
That's really profound. Thank you for sharing and detailing that. And I guess in your work, and I guess shifting towards becoming that healer that guides other people now to do that, what do you feel you've learned, or what would you say you can articulate balance or that self care? What does that actually mean for you now in this aftermath of your transformation and I guess your shift in where your attention has gone?
Well, one thing I really know is that most of us don't have any idea what self care is or how to take care of ourselves or what we even need because we are too busy. And the big takeaway for me, Erica, was to stop, to slow way down, to really tune in, to take time with myself, and then to let go of all the things that didn't work. The first thing to go when I did that was this marketing career. And I was going to launch another class. Believe me, that did not go easily because I had had some success and I had made some good money and I was now ready to let go of it. And I also had saved enough money to live on for a couple of years, but I didn't want to let go easily because I thought that it was terribly important that I get this, marketing work out there and that this is what I do, even though in my heart I knew that I didn't really like it, that I was time to move on and do something different. I had served people. I thought I'd done a good job, but enough already. I didn't care about it. I didn't deeply, deeply care about it. So in the end, what I'm learning now and what I learned then is that all the instructions are inside. But if we don't slow down enough to listen, they do us no good.
It's
I
virtually
I
impossible to hear them.
Yeah. And I had to have a profound loss to be able to stop long enough to really hear him. And I did try to launch the next business in the queue, and it was really funny because 16 people signed up. It was some good income. And then all of the sudden, the learning platform I'd built totally got hacked into and crashed, and the webmaster kept rebuilding it, and it went down 6 times, and finally malware started eating the webmaster's hard drive. So it was clear the universe was
Bit of
not
a
going to let me
sign.
do this. Yeah, a bit of a sign, I'd say. And so in the end, I was really being forced to completely let go, and most importantly, to not know what would be next. And I did not actually receive my new work for 2 years when an investor called me up and had read a novel I'd published years earlier and asked me to start a little publishing company and write fiction. And I did. I did that. I did it for 8 years, and I wrote 8 novels, which are online, and people can buy them on Amazon and all that kind of stuff. And they provided my income for a long period of time.
I think what's most interesting to me about this conversation is this idea of feeling friction with things that you're currently doing in your life, whether it be your career, whether it be a relationship you're in, whether it be something you're doing or not doing for your health, but you kind of resist making that change because of the uncertainty that lies on the other side. And I feel as humans, we have this tendency to only make decisions when we're certain of what's on the other side. That's one thing that I just wanted to pull out. And the second thing is this idea that a lot of us generally are only pushed to make some sort of change in our life when something really dramatic or really profound happens, as did in your case. Because otherwise we kind of go with the flow. Our life's on autopilot. We've gone to school, we've graduated, we've gotten the job, we've gone through the motions and sort of ticked all the boxes. And unless something jarring happens to say, maybe this isn't the right path for you, we so rarely stop and pause to ask that question or acknowledge or just understand, is this intuitively feeling right for me? Is this in alignment with me? So, what I want to ask in the scheme of all of that is how do you coach people or how do you for yourself create that space on an ongoing basis. I guess the question is targeted towards people listening who might have that little niggle, they might have that little intuitive kick, they might know that something might need a bit of attention, but they haven't really got the confidence to fully dive in or question it because it's not that bad, quote unquote. It's not that
Mhm.
bad. It's not great, but it's
Right.
not that bad. Their heart's maybe not in it. How do we actually create
Mhm.
that space to actually hear that instruction manual that we actually have within us, but we don't really, it's not apparent day to day?
Well, there's 2 ways. One is through suffering. You hit a rock bottom where you just can't go forward one more step, at which point you have really injured yourself in some deep psychic way. And, we've all been there one way or another with a relationship or a job or whatever. The other way is to just know something feels right and follow it, even if you don't know how it's going to turn out. The resistance you're talking about is very real. And we resist things like self care. Well, and self care includes, of course, following your gut and getting your needs met, and being surrounded by the right people that make you feel good, and setting boundaries and creating enough time for yourself, and all of those things. The way we resist, though, indicates that we're afraid of change. And instead of avoiding the whole thing altogether, consider doing something different, because it's the old Einstein saying about repeating the same thing, expecting different results is insanity, because it
Mm.
is. And, we just have to put on our big girl pants and do it. We really
Is
do.
the long and the
And
short of it, really.
yeah, that's right. I cannot give you a magic step that will trick you into pursuing your own desires. But it's kind of a fake it till you make it situation, because I kept not knowing how I was going to get along, and my income got lower and lower and lower and lower. And I actually talk about this whole process of living with this uncertainty in Free Spirited book. And I just got to the point where I was really getting low on money, and I was trying to start something. And I kept thinking, oh, now this is no good. I have to do something. But the universe pushed back every single time. And I would go back out there with a little coaching, marketing coaching offer, and nobody would sign up, or one person would sign up and then she'd refund. And I mean, it was just pushing a massive boulder up a hill. And my very good friend, who's my coach, said, you really have to stop. You cannot keep on like this. And I ended up taking 2 years away from work. I never would have said to myself, Suzanne, go ahead, take 2 years off. I told myself I could take a month off. And then a month became 2 months, and then 2 months became 4 months. And then before I knew it, 2 years had gone by. And that's kind of what worked for me, was just not expecting perfection immediately, not making a super radical, I mean, it was a radical change, but not expecting a radical solution immediately. See, if I don't sell 1 million books tomorrow, I'm not an author. That kind of thinking. It's not black or
Yeah.
white, this whole process.
Yeah, yeah. I'm glad you said that because I know for a lot of people listening, even myself, I mean, even sometimes taking 1 week away, you
Yeah.
experience that guilt, right? That feeling you're not being
Mhm.
productive, I'm not doing enough, I can't do
Right.
nothing because that's very uncomfortable for me, even though that may not be the case. I mean, I work as a full-time lawyer. So when I'm doing nothing, I'm doing the podcast, I've got an e-commerce business, I'm always doing something or I'm
Right.
socializing, I'm doing something for myself, but we get this guilt of like I can't just do nothing. I think for some people listening who may be in that crossroads when let's put it in a work context, right? They maybe want to leave their job and start their own thing, follow their passion, or maybe do a career shift, but that's going to mean that they're earning less money. I think creating that buffer or that getting comfortable with that uncertainty with finances can be something that's really jarring. So would you
Oh,
have
yeah.
anything to say to those people who maybe just need a little bit of a push, or just any like mindset tool or anything you use that kind of help through the financial aspect? Because I think whilst we can say, it's just one of many of the considerations, it's a very real thing that we need to consider, and we have a lot of real responsibilities and expenses that come with those sorts of decisions. So for you, is it a case of pre-planning so that you can make that change and follow your heart, or is it dive in and you'll work it out? Like, kind of, how do you coach people through
Well, it's
that?
kind of a little of both. I mean, I went through an experience 2 years before my daughter's death where I left a 25-year marriage, came out as a lesbian, and moved to San Francisco where I knew one person. And I just did
Talk
that,
about
you
radical
know.
change.
Yeah, it was radical change. But to make that change, first of all, I had a business going that I could take with me, and I had designed it. I had known for a while I was probably going to do this. And then the other thing I did was to really save a lot of money. And saving was very helpful. Not everybody has the opportunity to save a lot of money. And sometimes we're living paycheck to paycheck. And I've been there and I understand how that is. So, pre planning is great if you can do it. And if it isn't, the thing I've used again and again and again through my entire, well, now 43-year career as a business owner and writer and freelancer, et cetera, is meditating. And in meditation, you get clarity about things that were previously confusing. And I know it doesn't sound like much of a business tool, but trust me on this. 15, 20 minutes of meditating will do more for you in a day than extensive business courses sometimes. Because what you'll do is you'll tap much more deeply into your intuitive guidance. And I really am a great fan of that and have made a lot of money from it and have found that by hooking into what is true for me and letting the insights bubble up and making time for them to bubble up and then following those leads, things happen. Things happen that I would never have expected or guessed. I did keep meditating through my whole grief and loss experience, and I kept getting this message: just surrender, just heal, it'll be fine. Just surrender, just heal, it'll be fine. And then it was really fine. And
Mm.
to get clear on your needs too, do you need to ask for more money at work? Do you need to ask for time off? Do you need to ask for a sabbatical? Do you need to ask for more emotional support from the people around you? Asking for help is one of the things that I was not trained to do, and I had to learn how to do it. Here I was in the Bay Area where I knew very few people. I'd been in this toxic relationship that had ended, and I really didn't have a lot of friends as a result. And I was suddenly really needing a lot of support. I was 3,000 miles away from my family. So I went about the process of joining groups. And I joined
Mm.
recovery groups to deal with some financial addictive behavior I had, which I write about in my book. And I also joined some grief groups for people who'd been through the kind of loss I'd been through. And I just
Mm.
made this whole new core group of friends who really helped carry me through this and gave me a lot of insights, helped me create a new business, helped me create the agreements I needed to create around my fiction writing that made that profitable for me. And, I was so grief stricken, my brain barely worked, which is pretty much what happens. Part of your brain is literally disabled, the hippocampus, when you're grieving. And it's very hard to make decisions. It's very hard to take actions. It's all you want to do is sort of lie around and suck your thumb, and you do. And that's how you get through it. And, I really needed people to help me. And I know there's at least one person listening to this podcast who needs some help, who needs to ask for some help, but is too afraid or too proud, because that was me. I thought if I never ask for help, it means that I'm better at what I do, that I'm more of an achiever. It's really pretty funny when I think about it now. I'm more accomplished if I've done it all myself. And it's just nonsense. And all it does is stress me out and you out and whoever is refusing to ask for help. That's what I would say about that.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. And I resonate a lot with that. It's this complex of needing to feel self made. But I think when we realize that nobody ever made it anywhere without help, without support, without love, I think it
Mhm.
provides like a lot of comfort and reassurance to yourself. But I love that you've answered my question about the financial uncertainty under like kind of a few key themes, which is obviously that pre planning, if you can do that. Then there's the mental health element. You've got to take care of your mental health and tune into yourself for the guidance, for the clarity. And then, the third piece of leaning on our relationships for support. And I kind of appreciate that approach because often we think, well, I just need to know where the money's coming from without realizing, well, what's our energy? What are our beliefs around money? It's kind of like a full tiered complex, and sometimes we don't know the answers. And I think if anyone listening has resonated with this and is about to go through change or is contemplating change, surrounding yourself with people who can guide you through that or be supportive through that, whether it's groups, whether it's mentors, whether it's loved ones, I think it is really, really important. Kind of on the similar tangent, something I just want to pivot and ask you about is, I think a lot of people listening will resonate with this kind of craving or enjoyment of a busy and productive lifestyle. I think often when we talk about
Right.
being really, really busy, right? I think it can feel quite negative sometimes. There's one aspect. There's also the other aspect where we kind of, I think, feel better about ourselves if we have all these things on. And it's almost like this buzzword that we throw around, but busyness doesn't necessarily always mean productive, right? But I think
Mm.
innately, some of us listening who are high achievers, who want to be self made, all that kind of stuff, we have this buzz. We thrive off being really, really busy. So, how do you kind of strike a nice balance between having a lot on and it's kind of like feeling that dopamine, that need or that desire for being productive? How do we kind of manage that against self care and enough downtime and enough kind of quiet time and space to hear ourselves?
Well, we have a little saying, me and my friends, which is when you go on vacation, that's when you really make money. And I have much anecdotal evidence as well as my own experience to say that unless we really do take time off, we will slowly degrade our productivity. I mean, there is science on that. And, the studies are that not only are you much less productive with fewer breaks, but you are also at much higher risk. Women over 50 are 8 times more likely to have a cardiac arrest or a heart attack if they've not gone on vacation for 6 years. 80%.
Wow.
I mean, that's like you're going to have a heart attack, honey. Go on
Yeah.
vacation. Basically, that's what that's saying.
Yeah.
There is a lot of productivity research done around taking breaks and taking vacations. I had one vacation in particular. I went to Hawaii with my wife. This was right before the pandemic, and I guess no, let's see, it was 2019, and I had just done the book deal and was about to publish Self Care, the Extremely Busy Woman's Guide to Self Care, which is the book that goes with my podcast. And I get this call at the hotel. Like my agent called my phone in Hawaii, and she said, "Guess what? You sold the audio rights, and they want you to read the book." Which was great. It was as much money as I'd made on the book deal itself. So it was really wonderful to get that call. And all I did was go on vacation. I didn't expect it. I didn't anticipate it. I mean, my one of my good friends is an executive coach, and he always gets clients when he goes on vacation. So he goes on vacation every quarter, and he always makes money. And there's just something about it that is, it's the signal to the universe, the larger truth. Because, hey, if the gritty reality truth is not working for you, why not consider the larger truth that the universe is watching and the universe doles out rewards based on how well we take care of ourselves? It's kind of crazy,
Mm,
but trust me,
yeah.
because this
I
actually
like
works.
that. Yeah, that is a really cool reframe. Hey, like to think that, you get rewarded for looking after yourself. And the race is not how successful is your business, how much
Yeah.
money are you making, it's how well are you looking after yourself. And I think whether you want to subscribe to that or not, I think ultimately, if you yourself is not a priority, your health, your mental well-being, if all of that's not a priority, then everything else is sort of this superficial layer on top that's eating away at the main thing, which really is yourself. Like at the end of the day, we are these beings having a human experience, and we need to
Hmm.
respect that,
Indeed.
and we need to honor that. I guess kind
That's
of on
right.
this tangent, what are some things that you like to do? You've already mentioned meditation to keep yourself kind of, so say there's like a pendulum of being Zen monk and then burnout on the other side. What do you do to kind of avoid going down the burnout road every
Hmm.
day to kind of create that balance and just nurture that connection with yourself?
I don't work through lunch ever. I
Me
don't work on the
either. High
weekends.
five, sister.
Good. Yeah. Um, I get out for a walk in nature every day. And for me, a walk in nature could be the local park, usually is. Actually, it's 5 minutes up the road. And I'm lucky to live in a place with really beautiful parks. The research says that 20 minutes of walking in a natural setting, including a park, is the equivalent for your nervous system of 2 hours of urban walking. So,
Wow.
quick and easy solution is 20 minutes under the trees, and you can do it during lunch. We don't have to spend hours and hours. I mean, 15 minutes of meditation, 5 minutes even, whatever you can give yourself. And I know people with small children or people who have high pressure careers, we're trying to figure it out. And, my mom used to just get up half an hour before everybody else and have her quiet time before the house erupted, And for me, I don't have kids anymore, obviously, but I have quiet time for myself before the household wakes up every morning. I'm spending a
Yeah.
little time with you right now, enjoying this.
And I'm grateful that we've made it a part of your, you time today. So thank you for
Yes, you made it
for
into my
squeezing
new
us in.
time, Erica, because it's 7:30 in the morning here in Oakland, right?
I'm very grateful, and I know the listeners are too, because I'm learning a lot. So I know as a byproduct, they are too.
Oh,
One
it's
last
great.
thing
It's
I want to
fun.
ask you before I let you get back to the rest of your you time is this idea of doom scrolling, which for
Oh
anyone who
God.
hasn't heard that before, is that endless, mindless scrolling. You get caught in a loop on social media, comparison. It fills you with self doubt. You just honestly, it's that for me, it's that episode where you scroll and you feel really like crap after it. You feel like almost
Yeah.
worse about yourself. It's just like you're doomed by even doing it in the first place. So, what's your? I know you speak about having an antidote to this. What does that look like? Because that really piqued my interest.
Well, I like to scroll through things I like, and that would be putting down the phone and spending a little time with a really good book or a jigsaw. I like jigsaw puzzles. I can't help it. I just do. And they're
Yeah.
completely the opposite of doom scrolling because you put on some lovely music, if a cup of tea, a glass of wine, you get your cool puzzle. It's something really pretty that you would really like to look at and think about and ponder. It's an exercise in being present. And
Mm.
the thing about doom scrolling is it's much of it is projection. If so and so happens, then such and such. And that's not to say we shouldn't be aware. I'm a big follower of the media myself, but I also know that I worked actually for one of the biggest newspapers in the world for a while in the marketing department. And I learned so much about the media because I learned how much of it is about positioning news to attract readers. And now, of course, with clicks, and every time there's a click, money is made. So a lot of headlines and stories are pitched towards what will get people adrenalized, what will get people
Clickbait.
interested. Yeah, the whole, click for cash phenomenon has actually skewed media towards overstimulating our adrenaline and overstimulating our senses. And
Mm.
returning to something simple, the walk in the woods, the jigsaw puzzle, the sitting with your kid, or sitting with your pet, or, I mean, I have to throw the ball for this dog of mine for an
He's been
hour
well
every
behaved.
day.
The
Oh,
dog's
yes,
been
she
very well
has been
behaved.
excellent. I've got a high energy dog that really requires a lot of attention and time
Self care.
and yeah, and it is my self-care because I get to see joy unbridled every time that dog runs for the ball. So it's really fun. And I'm doing this in pretty places. So that is kind of my walk in nature every day. But I'll also say that we are skewed and wired in the 21st century towards overstimulation, and we all have overstimulated brains. And when you have an overstimulated brain, you have no time to go into something called default mode, which is this place of daydreaming. And in default mode, much like meditation, you can generate ideas that will be helpful to you. So, a place of great productivity is actually, counterintuitively, the default mode. There's a very wonderful book about this called From Bored to Brilliant. I don't want to mangle the author's name, so I'm not going to say it, but you can find From Bored, Bored, to Brilliant on online booksellers. And what she did was she surveyed 20,000 people on what happened when they allowed themselves to become bored. And it was this whole research project, which launched a brief podcast. I think she had one season, and she did this really great book. And it just was so, oh boy, it was so inspiring to me to see that somebody had done the science on this, because it was what my gut was telling me I needed. And as a result, it has been a big message that I share in all of my work on my blog, my podcast, my books, is about this importance of letting ourselves come back to a set point, to a
Mm,
state of being. And my daughter, who was really a Teal, was very wise. And in her journals, she often wrote, just be, or be and and those words, it took me a long time to understand what that meant. But what it means is become present to what's around you and become present to yourself. Sounds like not productive, but it's actually very rich, very rich.
yeah. No, this is beautiful. And to be honest with you, I think this is something I intuitively feel and know myself. I remember very clearly a couple months ago, I started to daydream. And then I had this moment after, and I thought, I don't know the last time I've done that. I remember when I was
Yes.
younger and my mum used to drive us to school, and, we didn't have iPhones, and
Yeah.
she rarely played music. And I used to look out the window and imagine myself riding a horse. I used to be obsessed with horses as we drive to
Oh,
school. And, I just thought like that wonder, that curiosity is not something I give space for. And it was only until I started, stop listening to music when I would go for a walk, or I would drive in silence sometimes. I'd just give myself a little bit of mental space, or I would be okay with just sitting there and, watching the sunset, not having to stimulate myself another way. Because the way we consume media, the way we use apps, is complete overstimulation. So I really like this idea of letting yourself be bored, and that being your default state, as an antidote to doom scrolling, which is actually putting yourself in the complete opposite, which is almost like a negative state from default, or from, even if you're in a positive place, it can really pull you down the other way. So I really love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I want to thank you in general for everything you've shared today, your story, your work. It's resonated a lot with me. I know it's resonated a lot with everyone listening. So I'm very grateful
oh.
for your time. And for anyone listening who wants to follow you, connect with you, maybe, have a look at some of your books, where's the best place they can go? And I'll pop some links in the show notes.
Sure. Well, everything is on my website at Suzanne
Perfect.
Falter, SuzanneFalter.com. My new book is Free Spirited: How My Daughter Healed Me from the Afterlife. And if you go to Amazon and you type in Free Spirited Falter, Falter, it pops right up.
Amazing. Well, I'll put links to all of that. I'll let you get back to your self-care morning. Take the dog out
Me
for a
time.
bit of a
Woo!
play. And
Great
thank you
chatting with
so
you.
much.
Oh,
Thank you.
thank
And for
you.
anyone listening who wants to hear more of Suzanne, or more of any of the topics we've spoken about, make sure you use the function on the Q&A on Spotify, and put through any requests there. But thank you, Suzanne, and I look forward to chatting in the future.